Aw.
Hi, Reed.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
Okay, well, I think we have everyone then. We're everyone, right? I'm trying to count. Mandy is here also. This is amazing. This is just a miracle.
Well done, Natasha.
I thought
Good job.
let's invite, like 7 moms, and we are lucky we end up with 3. And now you're all here. So this is amazing. Well, I'm going to just probably start. There's still people coming in. Welcome, everybody, to CAMERAMAMAS. This is a conversation that I've been dreaming with for years while I was building Deep. And I'm very moved right now that it's happening. That is so many people from all over the world there, and that the miracle has happened, that basically all my favorite female cinematographers are all here. We have this amazing collection of amazing DPs that are also moms, and some of them that are not moms yet, but that they are my favorite people. So this is going to be a super interesting conversation. And I'm going to let Kate and Rina to start with the questions more than me. All I want to say is that I wanted to create this conversation because, from the moment I started DPing, I always thought, how the fuck am I going to do this? I was traveling on planes every week from one country to the other. I was doing a lot of commercials in my 30s. Hearing all these babies crying on planes. And it just didn't even occur to me that this was possible. It was like, okay, I'm just choosing to be a DP. I love this life. I love this job. So I don't know, I'll have kids when I grow up, or when the right moment comes. The right moment hasn't come yet. And I'm thinking maybe this conversation is going to give me more clarity about whether I keep waiting for the right moment or, what the fuck, there is no right moment. And I'm always thinking, like, how the fuck do you guys do it? Because I don't have enough hours in the day as it is to just be a DP and do all the other things I need to do to be a human. And I'm so in awe with all of you being able to be amazing moms and amazing DPs at the same time. So I think everyone is going to be very excited to hear about your different stories, your different perspectives. I'm maybe just super quickly going to introduce everyone. I don't think anyone needs introduction here. Everyone that is here knows who you are. You're all the rock stars. So I'm just going to make it super, super fast. And we have making the questions, the amazing Kate Arismendi and Rina Yang. Kate just did National Anthem, and Monica, Rina just did The Fire Inside, Nani, and of course they both do amazing commercials, music videos, and everyone knows who they are. Anyway, we have Fiorella Chipinti, half on the side of making the questions, half on the side of having some answers, because she just had a baby 3 weeks ago, and she's killing it on commercials. She does a lot of commercials all over the world, and she's great. And she's also a little bit Argentinian, right? Like half
a lot of it.
A lot of it. Okay, good. Good. We have Mandy Walker with us, which of course needs no presentation. She's the first female president of the ASC. We're so excited. This has happened very, very recently. She's also one of the few women that were nominated for an Academy Award and won the ASC Award. Was it last year, or is it already 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. Time flies. And she has an amazing daughter that is going to probably join us in the conversation at some point, Ruby. And we'll find out if she had to do a lot of years of therapy or not, because she's 27, right? We have Reed Morano, who is this amazing DP turned director. So she's both, and she has 2 kids, and she can tell us a lot about all of that, and also transition into directing and everything that we have time for. She's directed Meadowline, I think We're Alone Now, and of course the Handmaid's Tale, and so many other things. We have Rachel Morrison, who was, of course, the first woman to be nominated for an Academy Award with Matt Bound, and she did Black Panther. She now also became a director. She worked with Rina on their movie together, and she also has 2 kids. We have Polly Morgan, who also has 2 kids, and you might know her from The Woman King or Back to Black. She is from England, but she lives here in LA, and I'm very happy that she's around because she's a good friend, like most of the people in this Zoom. We have Ari from Australia, who also was nominated for an Academy Award. The 3 nominated women in history are here. She was there for The Power of the Dog, and she also did Drive Away Dolls and The Wonder. We have, guys, we're missing Hattie here.
Oh, we can bring her in now.
Yeah. We have Alison Anderson, who her work I really love and admired. She did Night Swim and The Field at Sunset. And she has 1 kid, but she's in the next level of difficulty because she has a husband that is a DP, okay? But she also, apart from the kid, she has a farm. So she has 21 sheep, 5 goats, 1 sheepdog, 2 barn cats, and a hive of bees, which is probably like 5,000 bees.
So, sure.
So yeah, next level. And we have Hattie Binland, who's just got in, and she is a single mom. She's the only single mom that we have here. So she's also bringing that perspective as well. And hi, Hattie, sorry that you were like in the limbo, right?
I was in limbo, but I'm not now.
The limbo of Zoom. We'd be like trying to upgrade the Zoom because we have so many people sign up, and it's a little bit more complicated technically than what we could handle, but we're good. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. This is truly a miracle, and I don't want to steal more time. So we'll just start making this an informal conversation with all the questions that we have amongst the panel, and later we're gonna open it to the people. So Kate and Rina and Fiorella, it is yours.
Cool. Thanks for that amazing introduction. Yeah, super honored to be here with everybody. Natasha and I were talking like a couple months ago, the first time that we sat down, and we were kind of talking about motherhood, and I don't have any kids yet, but I was saying it's been something that's I've always wanted 1 kid, and as I come closer to the reality of that in the future, it's just so daunting. And I just know that like without seeing the pictures of like Rachel and Reed and Mandy like pregnant on set, I would not think that it would be possible. So I guess like my first question would be like, were there any role models that you saw doing it that you made you guys feel like you could do both?
I mean, Mandy was definitely a role model for me, and Reed, who is, a friend and peer, but got a much earlier start than me. And I feel like, I was making the phone calls to them that I feel like I'm fielding, via phone or Instagram from everybody else. But I agree that just seeing it by somebody who continues to work and does so successfully is really like what gave me permission to go for it.
Yeah.
The blind sort of this idea of just, there's never going to be a good time to do it. There just isn't. And so you kind of have to, like, I wasn't financially stable when I did it, for example, at all, which, most of the time, none of us are. And particularly right now, I can imagine people aren't. And, you just have to sort of realize that your ambition and your drive to do this job is never going to go away. And having a kid is going to be the least of the things that's going to stop you from doing it, to be honest.
Well, I think I had no role models in cinematography, but I just thought, the guys make it work who are cinematographers, and what's the difference? I have to make it work for me. And also I remember discussing it with my mum, and she said, well, you have a child and you make that child fit into your life. And however you do that, and don't feel guilty about it, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you'll work out a way of doing it. And I did. And that was my story anyway.
Yeah, and I think that like when I first started out, like, you know, like at 20 or something, I think I made a decision back then that I wouldn't have kids because I didn't see anybody else do it. And then it wasn't until much later that I started to see the three of you do it. And, you know, I became friends with Rachel. And actually, I think I went out to dinner with Rachel and she told me she was pregnant with her daughter. And she said to me, Polly, you know, you really shouldn't wait any longer. And I went back that night and I said to my husband, hey, we should really get on this. And I think I got pregnant like a couple of weeks later. So
Did Rachel knew this?
No, maybe. Did I know this, Polly? This is amazing.
I think you know.
Obviously
I don't
responsible
know.
for your daughter. I'll take credit. I love this.
Yeah, you should.
Well, Rachel told me to get my eggs frozen, and it was the best fucking thing I ever did because I always knew that I would have a kid later in my 30s. And yeah, so thanks, Rach.
I think I should field this with a little bit of backstory, which is that I had a hard time. I actually got pregnant quite quickly with Wiley, my first, and then had a very hard time getting pregnant with Cleo, my second. And so I do feel like I've been on this like mission to let anybody and everybody who will listen to me know that like there's no time like the present, and kind of just like you can always at least get the, whether it's the eggs or the embryos, like get it done, and then you'll have a little more peace of mind.
For me, so many of the women in this panel were definitely role models, you know, whether you're like pulling up the American cinematographer or you're seeing photos online and you're like, damn, these women are so badass. But I would say apart from that, I was also a little bit daunted and worried, you know, about like what would getting pregnant or having a baby do to my career. And I do have to say, like, obviously that's a normal feeling, but my mom actually has this phrase that says the baby comes with the bread. And I would say, like, once you become a mother, you just have this kind of go, like you do it. And like for me personally, when I got pregnant, it was like the most work I've ever had in my life. I don't know, there's just something about having a baby that just the universe provides. But I would say like motherhood just gives you that grit to just like even though you don't have enough hours in the day, you just you do it. And it's just a different energy. And I didn't think it was possible. Also being pregnant and being on set, like you're feeling heavy and so many other symptoms, but like you just do it. You just women are badass. So I love that part of just motherhood.
Yeah, I think also there was a part to kind of go off of what you were saying. There's this part of you that's kind of like, well, if this is what ends it for me, I guess I'll just have to accept it. But thankfully it didn't seem to do that. But I'll also echo the sentiment. A lot of these people in this call right now, which is like so nerve-wracking. I saw all of your photos and I didn't even have a thought in my head that I couldn't do it because I saw those, you know, so. And specifically, I think Reed, Rachel, Mandy, you guys definitely, I saw photos of you pregnant on set. So it's super cool.
I barely want to fucking operate anymore. I'm like, I cannot imagine being 8 months fucking pregnant. Like,
you know what though, I think that we probably all have in common just from going into this occupation. That was a male dominated occupation that still is a male dominated occupation, albeit that we could count how many of us there were, you know, back when we were looking up at Mandy and, you know, Ellen and Amy and everybody. Like, and even when I entered the ASC, we could count, like, you know, there was just a few of us. Like Rachel and I were at NYU. There was like 3 of us who wanted to be DPs who were women. And I think the attitude that we have going into this job, where we're going to be the head of a crew and get the respect that you all do from your coworkers, no matter who they are, male, female, old, young, whatever it is, you have a bullish a bullish ambition to follow your dream. And I think that's the thing about being a parent. In order to do, if you can do that, you can do this too. You can handle all of that. If you just do it, you're already in it. That's the other thing. That's kind of the way I did it. It was like do now, think later kind of thing. Like, and then also the work that we do is so emotional and human. And if you don't have something to draw on in your life at home, then you're going to have a hole that's missing there. And now that's somebody's choice. If they don't want to have kids, that's great. If they do want to have kids, then my advice would be like, yeah, no, just what Rachel was saying to Polly, no time like the present, because you you can make it work. It's definitely, we're in a world now that is a lot more forgiving, I think, for that type of thing. But also, if you have your sort of work base already, it's there and people want to work with you and people are going to work around it and they're going to wait for you. And you might miss that one movie or those two movies, but there's always going to be more. You know what I mean? And they have what you can learn from being a parent and bring that to your job. I think it made me a better leader, a better cinematographer, a more caring, just all around better for my crew. I don't know what you think, Mandy, Rachel.
I definitely agree. I mean, well, one thing I would just say is like to your point about missing an opportunity, but that there will be others. Like I think we all can probably speak to the films that we weren't able to do because we were giving birth. Mine, ironically, is called Creed. But for me, that was this huge opportunity. You know, Ryan, who I'd done Fruitvale with, wanted me to do Creed with him, and when the dates landed, they were January to March, and I was due with my first child in February. And we even like went down the road of like, could I take off for a few weeks to give birth and like what that would look like. But the studio would barely approve me to shoot the film as is. They were not going to let me leave to have a baby. I don't think insurance would have insured me for that either. But I thought my career was over. Like I fully thought like this is it. This was my opportunity. And I can't shoot this like, it was a $40 million movie or something, which for me was huge. And then, I mean, I think I did Mudbound even before Black Panther, but then I got the call for Black Panther. So it's like, I think to your point, like, you can't look at it as, well, first of all, movies don't love you back. Your film is always going to, your child is always going to be far greater to you and to your life than any film would ever be. But even the film that got away, and there are others, I think we can each speak to them, like there were others to replace that, and your career moves forward, regardless of the time that you take off to have a child. Or in the case of my second, who wasn't due during my shoot, I wrote it right to the end, which I think many of us can, also attest to. And it's kind of just a timing thing there.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. And just that maybe the idea that I was pretty nervous, but I think I'd also seen probably the same photos that Kate you'd mentioned. There's not actually that many of them out there. I think we've probably all seen the exact same photos. But yeah, I thought maybe as well, like I'd put it off as long as I kind of biologically could. And I was like, it's now or never. And part of me was like, okay, well, it's going to mean I'm not going to be able to do certain projects. And then another side of me was like, well, maybe they're the projects that I don't need to do, or like maybe the projects that will kind of embrace me and then be like, yes, we can accommodate you with a child or being pregnant or with children. Like that actually kind of is where my heart wants to like go, versus the most hardcore project where you're like only sleeping 3 hours a night and just like everything's like bare minimum and everyone gets treated like shit. And I think we've moved, maybe there's a time in your life where you're like, yeah, that's movie making. And I think maybe at the same time biologically that your brain and body start to like look at babies and like really get excited by the idea, you're also being like, okay, maybe looking for projects that are just a little more sane and kind of accommodating, and they have just like the right heart and the right spirit that they're going to be able to take care of you as well, like accept you with embrace you, like really, really supportive, versus like, oh, just trying to secretly have this child that I'll just try and be the least inconvenience possible and maybe no one will notice. It's like, I think I'm kind of actually, especially now that you have a baby, I mean, I'm still super new, we're in like the first year of it, but you become such an advocate for your own, actually like your own needs and the bare basics where you're like, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need this, I'm going to need this. And if the production says like, yeah, we can do that, that's not a problem. It's like a kind of great filter to be like, okay, well, doesn't mean it's going to be a perfect project with no issues, but at least you're kind of maybe filtering out some of the people that don't, maybe it wasn't going to be the greatest project anyway.
I have a question about this because, of course, Ari, you are now Ari Wegner, and you can be in that position, right? But there's a lot of people that are like in their early 30s and they haven't had the success that you had, and they're more like starting their careers. So some of you were saying something about that, and like about getting like kind of like your crowd, your tribe that is hiring you and is going to hire you anyway and support you. But what happens? Does anyone have a story or was in the situation where you don't have that stuff yet and you're really like still kind of, opening your path through the jungle?
I mean, I think that's actually part of why I was so sort of vocal and visible with Cleo, my second pregnancy, and putting it out there that like that one could be pregnant and shooting or could have a young baby and shoot, is because of actually multiple films that I wasn't hired on when I was pregnant with Wiley, and I wasn't known then. I was definitely up and coming. And specifically, there's one film that I won't say what it was, but it was like, it's still the one that got away. It was a very, very special project that I was on board effectively to do. And when they found out how sort of new my baby was going to be, the director sort of panicked and kind of pulled the offer, which I can only assume is that he maybe had a bad experience with his wife having postpartum or something like that. But I mean, or who knows? But to say that doesn't happen wouldn't be fair either. But I think, yeah, I guess it's still to go back to what Ari said, like maybe that wouldn't have been the right project even if I'd gotten in the door. But it was, it was another one that felt like the death knell to my career. And I think it's just, this game is a long game, it's not about overnight success. It's about persistence and whatever order you do it in, it's still like eventually, you'll find the right projects and the right group of people to collaborate with. But I do think I hope it's gotten a little bit better. I mean, that's sort of why I think some of us have really kind of put ourselves forward to be the poster children for this can be done, because it's so important that people realize that like it isn't a detriment. And to Reed's point earlier, I think it can be a real asset. Like just, I guess all the things that sharpen your tool once first of all, once you've had a baby, like set is it's a holiday. But it makes you better with your, it makes you sharper, it makes you all these other things too.
Yeah, I mean, I always, because I was broke all the way through until I was like in my late 30s, because all the jobs that I was doing was independent movies. And I guess I always looked to Reed because Reed, you had your kids when you were just starting out, and I got pregnant just as I booked my first studio movie. So, it's like two different ways to do it. Whereas like Reed, struggled because she had her kids younger and was like just breaking into the industry, and it was different for me because I was just starting my studio movie career. But I was always amazed how you did that, Reed, like to kind of do those real low budget jobs, and like I always kind of was intrigued about how that worked for you.
Well, I did it, like I get an idea in my head and I'm like, I'm gonna do this. Like I just wanted to have my kids at a young enough age to where when they were older I could hang out with them in the bar. This sounds terrible. Like I didn't want them to be like there to be a huge age gap. And now I have like two giant guys who are like have to shave every 3 days and like smell and leave pubes in the shower and just, it's a whole different ballgame. But I did do it, yeah, like before I got really any success at all. I was just an independent film. And actually, I think in a way that was a bit easier, not financially, but like getting around the loopholes or the red tape of like, I wasn't in a union yet. Probably most of the jobs I were doing were super shadily insured by a bond company. If the director and the producer were on board with having a pregnant DP or a DP with a baby, then it worked out. But I lost jobs because of it that I thought, oh, this sucks. Like I know when I did. I know I also, I was on the circuit to sort of like meet with agencies to get an agent around the time I was like 3 or 4 months pregnant with my first son. And I thought I wasn't showing, but I remember going into a meeting in one of those, it was, who knows what agency it was, but having them say, and this was after I had shot Frozen River, which was the first movie that kind of gave me some recognition to even think about getting an agent. And I already just didn't really think. I just was like, I found the person to have a baby with, and I thought, I'm not going to waste any time. It was sort of like doing it without thinking, but in a way, it was probably the best thing for me. And then when I went in that meeting, I remember them saying, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And I was like, well, I see myself shooting bigger movies. And they didn't take me on as a client. And would I rather have had that agency back then or have Casey and Fletcher? Obviously, I'd rather have my kids. And I think, what was interesting about doing it in a non-union or just starting out, it's like, yeah, money was tight. It was really difficult. Their father was a gaffer, also DP, so it was really hard. And then but I was also in a world where the rules were made not by a giant corporation, but by each individual entity. So like I was working on a reality TV show at one point with my kid, and I literally brought the sonogram to my producer and said, and she was a friend of mine by that point. We had worked on several seasons, and I brought the sonogram to her and I said, and she's like, oh my God. And I was like, and the father was working on the show too. And I was like, can I stay on the show and work for as long, can I work through my pregnancy? And she was like, you can work as long as you feel able. And that was a home improvement show where we were literally using table saws, like, flames, like toxic fumes, like painting, like it was not safe for a person, let alone unborn child, but we had to make our money somehow. And I did work through the whole pregnancy. And then after he was born, they were like, bring him to set. And my producer literally, and that's not going to happen in every situation, but I guess that's what I'm saying is when you're just starting out, sometimes the rules are a little more they're more pliable.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it would have been harder to get approved to like get insured if it was like a huge studio movie. So I think Polly, in many ways, what you were doing was more difficult. But at the same time, you've already established yourself. You're not going away. People are always going to want you to shoot. So it's like you take a hiatus for 6 months if you need to.
Yeah.
And it's nobody's business as far as I'm concerned. If you want to shoot until, yeah, as long as you want, like it's your body. And if you feel physically able, why shouldn't you? Actually found when I was shooting with my second son, and I had the 3-year-old, I went on to do another indie feature, and the producer and the director were male, and they were both like, yeah, let's fucking do this. But I had a line producer who was female, who was super worried and didn't think I could do it and wanted to keep telling me that I needed to have this and that operators and whatnot. And I was like, listen, I've got my husband here. He can operate if I need an operator, but I promise you, you won't need an operator. But I interestingly that it was like the female that maybe they were just trying to be helpful, but I was less judging. It's just about the people that you work with and you surround yourself with. They can be so helpful,
Yeah, you know what? When I was pregnant with my daughter, I finished the studio movie and I went on to do Legion. And they were so nervous that I was going to like collapse or something that Amy Vincent was my understudy for like 2 episodes of TV. And Amy Vincent just sat in an office. And I said to them, I don't need, I'm not going to just suddenly collapse. But they were so nervous to hire a 7-month-old pregnant woman that Amy Vincent just was like my understudy. It was just so weird, these male producers thinking that like I was sick or that I couldn't do the job. So yeah, people have different opinions about working with pregnant people for sure.
I would say is like whether you're starting out or maybe like if you're a camera assistant, not a DP, or doing mainly commercials, which is what I was doing. I actually hid my pregnancy until it was like absolutely super noticeable because I had a feeling that work was going to drop, which it did, because when I made the announcement, every hold I had in my calendar went away, or emails would begin like to my agent, like, I know Fiorella's very pregnant. Would she be able to do this job? And then it also went away. Like it was no coincidence like the previous months versus when I shared that I was pregnant, which I've spoken to so many directors and producers that they also hid their pregnancy just in case. It wasn't obviously that I was ashamed or whatever, but it was a work thing. Like I couldn't afford to not work for 8, 9 months or whatever. And so that was kind of like my game plan. And it was like work and rack up and save as much as I could, like when I wasn't showing, and then work stopped. But I do have to say, like, it's just a choice that you make. Like you could keep working, like maybe some people have different connections and networks. Like my directors that trusted me and producers that were okay, mostly female. It was when it was like an all-female producer director team that like they were cool with it. But I did lose a lot of work. But I would say that the flip side to that was so many of us in this room are so used to working like crazy, nonstop, no days off. And I would have to say that like when I stopped working around 7 months, those like couple of months slowing and easing and nesting into what this super slow life of having a newborn is, especially, was, I think, a blessing, because I feel like if I would have gone like many of us from like nonstop work, work, work every day, 12 hours, like you're around people, into like I'm by myself, nursing in a room. I haven't seen people in weeks, I haven't gone out into the world. And so having that kind of slow ramp, I think, was really good for me, because I feel like if I went from what we're all kind of used to into like no sleep, seeing nobody, nursing, like it's very lonely. So I think kind of having a little bit of a slow down could be good for mental reasons. At least that was my experience.
I was to that point, I was gonna say that I had the opposite experience, in that, not by choice, but because I said yes and I felt fit. I was shooting up like 9 days before I had Gabriel, and actually my sister I was in the UK, and she ended up coming with me in the car in the mornings because she was so paranoid about, like she was just my making sure that I was okay. And but it was because it was just because I kept saying yes and I felt physically well. It wasn't. But yeah, absolutely, to your point, the shock of them having a baby. I mean, I remember the morning I gave birth, I took I was emailing for an indie film, thinking I'd be kind of in my mind I was free and available, because like my head hadn't quite done the flip. So yeah. Anyway, it's like it's such a journey, and you're at such different points at different times, and yeah, it's just such a different. Yeah, it's such a journey.
I think also like sorry, you go. I was gonna say also like every there is kind of no like one experience of like pregnancy or post-birth or like infancy or toddlerhood, because you're such a like mother baby duo, and how you either of you are is like so variable, and also like what you want to, how you want to do like your first baby's, you know, year of life, or what your appetite to return to work was. Like I was so blissed out in like civilian life, like doing normal people things. It was like such a novelty to be like, oh, every Wednesday morning I go and do this thing. I've never been able to do Wednesday morning thing like a normal person, and like meeting people from outside the film industry that have got babies, and like it's like, wow, this is what it's like on the outside. And it took me a lot to be like, okay, I didn't really have I thought I'd be super hungry to get back to work, like let's make it happen ASAP. But actually I kind of enjoyed it. And then you don't really know what kind of baby you're going to get either. Like this one's pretty like hyper chill, but plenty of people I know would, you know, you might not get, it's just like you kind of easy to forget that like a baby's a real person with their own personality and their own preferences. And yeah, I don't think I could have gone back. And this is my first job back. I start that I'm on now, and she was like 8.5 months when we started. So, and that was, yeah, I don't think I could have done it any earlier. Like physically, yes, but like kind of emotionally, I wasn't ready to be like, the idea of her being apart from me. Even now, it's probably like she can do it like a couple of hours away from me before we're both like emotionally kind of hungry for each other, which we've kind of managed the juggle so far. Just, it's not like easy, but so yeah, I think just I guess for everyone kind of considering it, yeah, every pregnancy and baby is so different. And I think also I think I knew that I probably wouldn't want to get back to work straight away, even if I was physically able. So it was probably like 5 years of slowly squirreling away like a kind of savings fund to be able to live for that time. Because my partner's also in film, and he's more of a writer director, so it's not like we had a kind of super steady income. And that was it was like a very slow build to make a little nest egg, just to feel like a bit safe, to not have to rush back. But again, yeah, everyone's so different, but that was kind of my way of like emotionally, like psychologically being kind of feeling safe in this time. Because also like it's not, you know, you hear about other people that have like paid in different parts of the world, like paid maternity leave for X amount of time, or same with people's partners that are getting paid parental leave. And I just knew that wasn't going to be a thing for us. So yeah, that was my technique.
And we talk a little bit about that, about the juggling, the people that have to go back to work because they weren't able to save, and how does that work? What kind of support systems you guys have? They all have different support systems. You know, what's the minimum support systems that you need to make it work, and all this kind of stuff?
I would say I went back to work pretty quickly. Like when our daughter was about 4 months old, I started shooting commercials again. But this is how I did it. It's not how everybody does it. But my husband, who was a chef, he wasn't in the film industry, decided he would become full-time dad. So I had like one parent with our child the whole time, and that allowed me to go back to work. And I think, you know, like everybody's talking about that, then you still have the juggling of you know, being a mum and working. And I remember every spare moment that I had, I would give it to my child. Like when I was in pre-production on a movie when she was about 18 months old, I remember getting home as soon as I can so I could do the bath, I could do the reading of her book and feed her dinner, and And every weekend I'd spend 100% of my time with her and making sure that we had that connection still, as Ari was saying. And for me, that worked. And we would travel as a family when I was doing films and commercials. Actually, a lot of the time, if I was shooting commercials in another country, we would travel together. And financially, I would have to, on a commercial, I'd have to fit the bill for that because production weren't going to pay for the extra tickets or whatever. But on a movie, they generally did. But I feel like, it's not easy those first couple of years going back to work, I'm going to say, because you're doing two jobs. You're a mum and you're a cinematographer. And as we're all saying, you're a leader on set, and then you have to come home. And I feel like that for me, I also, what was really important, I think, in now my relationship with my daughter is great and fantastic, and she now works in the film industry and we work together a lot. She's a stills photographer. She's not in the camera department. She doesn't want to do my job, but is that quality time that I spent with her in our relationship, it was really important in those early years. And I think also us as a family, we never talked about it, that it was a problem. It wasn't, oh, I'm so sorry, darling, mummy's at work. It was like, mummy can't be here for your school concert, so dad's going to film it, or we're going to have your birthday next week when I get back. So that it works for us. And we always just made that, we were dealing with it. We weren't, like some of her friends' families, but we made it so that our time together was special, and that it was not a problem that I was at work as a mother. And also, I think like one important thing that happened for me is there were other families on set, and they would hang together with my family. My husband and my daughter would hang with some of the mums and their kids, or the gaffer and the grip, and when we were traveling together on a movie. And so there was a little kind of community there as well. And yeah, I think that, it's been a really positive experience for there's my daughter there. That's Ruby.
Right on cue.
What I have a question there, like, Maddie, and for Ruby, what did you guys do once you got to like school age? Did you keep traveling as a family, or did you have periods where you went off and then came back, or how did you make that work beyond kind of little kid years?
Well, I think once she got to about 12, we didn't travel and I think it was middle school actually, so maybe a little earlier when she was 9 or 10. And then that we would just, they would travel when they had school holidays and come and join me. But thankfully, we have FaceTime and Zoom, and I would just connect with them as much as I could. So
Yeah, Ari, so I always travel with my family, and this job that I've just done is the first time I had to put them in school. So my daughter and my son went to kindergarten and preschool in South Africa for 8 months. And it's definitely getting more complicated as they get older, and trying to find a school in LA that would let me pull my kids in and out was very difficult. And it's all very expensive because I could only find a private school in LA that would let me hold a place, and then I put them in a private school there. So I don't know if I'll keep doing that. Maybe I'll hopefully find a public school here that can let me do that. But yeah, the school thing is a little complicated. But I would also love to hear from Ruby about how she felt, because I was inspired by you, Mandy, about always traveling with your family. And so that's my plan until middle school. But I'd love to hear from Ruby about how that experience was for her.
I think, like Mum was saying, she didn't keep me separate from her work life. And especially because we were coming in to visit and there were other kids and families that were living the same lifestyle as us, it didn't feel isolating or anything like that. And now a lot of them are working in film as well, and we're making our own little short films, and we're all still really good friends. We've been friends for like 3 decades now, and had kind of an unusual upbringing that we can talk about, and we all want to do ourselves. We want families and want to do what you guys are all doing. But I think it was a good testament to mum balancing everything, that she would come home and make an effort, and she used to talk about work. It wasn't like she had 2 different sides of her life. It felt like we knew the recurring characters in her work life, and she knew the recurring characters in my home life. So I feel like it was a nice way to kind of get integrated into the industry, and also to keep a friendship and a mother-daughter relationship throughout the years. And FaceTime was obviously helpful as well if she was away and I was at high school or something like that where I couldn't travel.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really, I mean, you can't underestimate how important it is to model how much we love what we do. I think that so many kids, really stand to benefit from seeing parents who are happy and fulfilled in the work that they do. And I think to that end, what you're saying about not letting it be a negative thing, but I have to go to this place. I get to go to this place. I'm doing this job that I love, and and then to your point, just sort of making it work. A couple little logistical things, because I saw somebody ask in the chat, like sort of what you can and can't ask for. These are like mom on set hacks. I joke that Wiley was raised in a walk-in closet, but between Black Panther and Mudbound, which were basically back to back, it wasn't that I needed a 2-bedroom. I just needed a walk-in closet, which is kind of perfect because you have sort of blackout curtains. They're usually carpeted. It's great for a crib. It's great for a toddler. And the other thing that you can often do is trade your one business class ticket for like 3 to 4 economy tickets. So even if they won't fly your whole family business, they can usually make that swap for you. So just for people who are asking about that.
Mm-hmm. And Rachel, have you ever had any luck like asking for kind of additional help with childcare?
I think Polly can probably speak to that. I'm like Mandy, my wife stepped down so that we could travel together. Unlike Mandy, once my kids got to kindergarten is when we started to sort of separate, because I felt like, or I guess collectively we felt like the routine that was easier. My wife found it easier to keep them in their routine with their friends, with her friends, than to kind of keep moving. It was really for us when we had the second. I felt like one was much more mobile. But Polly, maybe you can weigh in on having it,
Yeah, I mean, none of the productions that I've worked on would ever give me extra help for childcare. The only support that I've got is, just like Rachel said, trying to help me with the flights, and then try and help me find the right amount of the right housing. Like I need a 3-bedroom, because I would often, like if I was in the States, there's a nanny that she lives in New York, but we would always have her come with us. So the nanny would stay in one room, the kids would stay in another, and then my husband and I would stay in the other room. But they wouldn't pay for childcare. And obviously, like my housing allowance is the same housing allowance as everybody else. Like I didn't get parental treatment just because I had kids, but they tried to help me out a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, they weren't, I mean, I've never actually asked them, hey, can you help me pay for a nanny? But I doubt that they would.
I actually, when I was doing an indie films with the kids and we were traveling, and obviously my situation was different because their dad was my gaffer. And so we could all fly together, and we just said, you have to give us a nanny. Because we have 2 kids that are, I mean, maybe it's easier because it's an indie movie and they really want you in particular to shoot it. And like, you just have to say, like, I need someone who can watch the kids while I'm on set. Say you work with your partner or whatever. But that being said, it was very difficult because we would get just random people they could hire. And so, I remember one time we were doing this movie in Sicily that was super low budget. And it was like, the kids were like 4 and 2. And basically, we were shooting in this old hotel, like we were staying in the hotel, we were shooting it, and the kids, every time we leave them in the hotel room in the morning, they'd be like crying and crying. And it was hard, but at the same time, when they were there with us, they came to lunch, they came to dinner. You know, you have to, we're women, we're really good at multitasking and splitting ourselves into many parts. And the trade-off was at least we knew we were going to see them at the end of the day. And that I did that for as long as I could till they got into school. And then I couldn't do, once they got into actual elementary school, then by that point I was in the union and their father was doing other stuff and he was writing and he didn't want to, it wasn't like they were going to travel with me on every job. And so it became like I would get them sometimes on my own. You know, at a certain point we separated. So then I'd be on a movie and I'd have the kids by myself and I'd have to have a babysitter. But you know, it sort of depends. Sometimes you just have to like know that if the director really, really wants you and you're asking for this extra thing, get the director to know that and that they can make that happen for you, I think, you know. Because like I said, I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't established when I was really doing it. So I was still doing just really indie films. But I didn't bring my kids that, then it got harder. That's a whole other part of the story is when I had to like go away a lot. And they can all, like Mandy, what you were saying, when they would come and visit you, you know, from time to time after Ruby started going to school and stuff. It's like, that's why I was really, there was a long period of time where I was just straight up just working away from them and trying to either FaceTime or play Roblox and like they were like little trying to play video games. So I like go in the video game and play with them. And that was like the way to communicate with like little kids. And, you know, it was really, that part was the hardest, I think, actually, when I had to be away from them. But, you know, I think you also come to a point in time where you know when, and as Fiorella was saying, like sometimes you can take time off to be around them and are like what you were saying, you're enjoying this moment of being a normal person. And I had like when we were in the pandemic and my kids were home, that was the first time in most of their lives that I'd spent that much time with them. And then I decided after that, I'm going to stay at home as long as possible. And obviously I moved into directing, so it was a little different, but like I like being a mom, driving my kids to school. I like having a routine. I like that. And now I'm on set again and I'm like, I like this too. But like, you just start to be like, it's not, cinematography is your baby your whole life. Then when you have a baby, you realize what a real baby is, what a real human being, like a real love. And you can have both. You just have to, you know, you just have to allow yourself, if you're feeling the urge to do that. You have to just sort of not be worried that the other thing's gonna disappear, because it's not.
I think a couple of people are asking in the chat about childcare too. And I think that, you know, everybody does that differently. And it may be that, because I do know a couple of people that and new mothers, that you have to have a nanny and that you have to spend a bit more of your wages on childcare and support, picking up from school and things like that. And not everybody has, you know, like I did, a partner who was home all the time. So there's different ways of doing things that may financially be a bit more expensive, obviously, if you don't have family around, I think. But that sometimes is the only other way.
Yeah.
I used to babysit for some people when I was a teenager visiting mum on set if they had their young kids there too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm from England and I live in LA and my husband's from Australia, so we don't have any family here. So, you know, we just, like you're saying, Mandy, I mean, ultimately, whenever I got a job, I just spent loads of money on childcare. And then when we would go away, I would have to like buy a new crib and buy new kids stuff and buy a new high chair. And, you know, like it's really, it's really difficult. But obviously, like, it's so amazing to be able to make it work these days. And I mean, I think like you're saying, we too, like babies are more mobile, and then as kids get a little bit older and into school, and then they can start telling you like, "Mummy, why aren't you picking me up from school? Why aren't you ever there?" You know, then that also gets really heartbreaking. But you know, it's worth it, of course, because to be able to be a DP and have a family as well is you know, an incredible thing that maybe we couldn't, or maybe didn't think that we could do, you know, 20 years ago.
Ati, can you tell us a little bit about your experience being a single mom and support systems?
That to me.
Yes, Hattie.
Oh yeah. I was thinking I've kind of done every version. I've had to leave Gabriel behind. With my mum and my sister, who've been amazing. I've had to bring him with me. The mornings have been so early that, you know, when he was really little, I did a commercial when he was 2 months old. And I had an overnight nanny so that I could be, you know, and she came to stay with me, London job. I've done every version, and this idea of being really flexible and having maybe wanting that for your. I don't know which way around it is. Whether I have a sort of Gabe is very flexible because I need him to be, or the other way around. You know what I mean? But I've always had that sort of, you know, he needs to be good with new people, and yeah. So I've done every version. I've also, you know, he's been in, you know, in a baby room in a kindergarten, and been picked up by other people. You know, literally everything.
I think the baby does adapt. I mean, I actually think it's worth pointing that out because it's like we need adaptable babies. And yes, not all babies come out the same, but you know, when I hear about people who have babies who have to nap at a certain time, like at the same time every day, and they need blackout curtains, they need a noise machine, I'm like, that just wouldn't work in our world. But when you have a baby who's going from walk-in closet to other walk-in closet to set to, you know, airplane, like they learn to exist that way. And I think it sets them up to be able to kind of go with the flow, which, you know, with this career you will need through their, you know, through their adolescence.
I think you're absolutely right. I remember I used to think not just of my career, but like, what about a mother who works in the fields, you know, all day and gets home after dinner and then has to just try and connect with their kids, or gets home and has to feed them dinner and then gone before they get up. You know, there's other women in other fields that I felt like would be in a similar situation, and they're all, you know, raising their kids and making it work as much as they can. But I think it's that thing of not, like I was saying, is not taking it on as a guilty thing and not being guilty about it, and understanding that this is your life, and your life is great, and they should, you know, well, they will be part of it, and making it a positive experience for them.
That's great advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask something about like tutoring? If you are doing like taking your kid out of school, like say you're in LA and they're in school when you're there, and then you go and travel with them, so you have to hire a local tutor, or like is it online remote schooling sometimes? I mean, I'm sure there's various options of things, but I'm just super curious about the schoolwork side of it and things like that.
Can I just
If
say,
anyone has experience.
yeah, what we did was Ruby went to a Montessori school, and they are pretty much all over the world. And so when she went to another city, her school actually would connect with one over there, and they would talk about where she was up to, and she would go to a Montessori school in another city, and so be in the same curriculum basically. And that's how it worked for us.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I just made the mistake of when I went to Cape Town, I should have put my kids in like the American international school, because I didn't realize that in Cape Town, their school year starts in January and not in September. So my daughter, it was all kind of messed up. Like, she started kindergarten twice. So Mandy's approach of doing Montessori is probably a really smart one. But I'm kind of thinking, because she's in kindergarten, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, what I was surprised to hear is that when I was trying to put my kids in public school, that they were only allowed to be 13 days absent from public school. Otherwise, they would get an absentee record or something on their papers. And actually, Kira Kelly, she told me that she took her daughter out of school and she didn't realize, and now she's got like absenteeism on her record, whatever that means. And so it was really difficult. And like, I did a lot of research trying to talk to people who pulled their kids out of school to travel with them. And I really couldn't find many people that did that. Like, one parent always stayed at home. And so I guess what people do if they're in public school is they have to unenroll them and travel with them and then enroll them in a school there and then re-enroll them back in the public school. Or just, if you pay for a private school and they'll let you leave, then they'll hold your place and then you keep paying for it. But it's very complicated, and I don't really understand, because I'm not American, the American school system of like if you can get into trouble here, or your child can get something on their record if you don't tell the school that they're enrolled in another school. So the tutoring might be an option as long as the tutor is certified or something. But yeah, I mean, it's a minefield out there. And when I've been trying to research how I would travel with my kids up to middle school, I was kind of a little surprised at how little information there was. But we're just kind of making it up as we go along. So.
It does kind of seem like the one good thing about the pandemic is that there's a lot more remote jobs and a lot of people traveling. So from the research that I tried to find, it does seem like schools are sort of shifting into like remote learning, or, it might be like your kid is in front of a computer a lot more, which is sort of unfortunate when they're away, but maybe it is shifting into something a little more doable because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But just to say it, it's sometimes not just about the learning and the education experience. Like, my son's gotten really into soccer, right? So now he's playing club soccer. Like, it becomes also just about shifting their life if they do have, other routines that they get pretty used to. I do think it becomes like and that's also, where are you going? I mean, I think we've already probably all started to assess jobs like, okay, I love the script, but like, do I want to go to Winnipeg in the winter? Or do I want to, like, we do that already a little bit, like, what is the quality of life? But then it starts to really be, yeah, like what would the quality of life be for my kids if I'm bringing them? Are there good schools that they could go to? And what is it going to mean for them if I'm pulling the, like, maybe it's easier to take my family like off season with soccer or whatever it is. But it quickly becomes not just about the schooling. It becomes about a lot of other external things.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what Ari is saying about how the kids are people too. They're their own people. And at a certain point, like, what Mandy did, like what is kind of what I did, which is like to take most of the time, we pretty much traveled together until they got really into school, like basically to first grade. And then at that point in time, it was so hard to get them a place in school in Park Slope and also it's just like, it's time now for where we just have to say, okay, the production's going to fly them over for 2 weeks during this X vacation or whatever it is, whenever they have time off, or we're just going to take them out of school for 2 weeks. And that seemed, or 3 weeks. And that was actually a lot easier than trying to relocate everybody for an entire period in some cases. Because by the time we'd been traveling with them all, like having a baby and traveling with a baby actually is a lot it's a lot easier traveling like with an adult kid actually, but to travel with a baby, you can take the baby anywhere you want to go. The baby can go where you go. And I agree with that idea of like, you don't need to change your life with the baby should fit into your life. And that actually still works. Like I see people who have those crazy schedules for the babies, like you were saying, Rachel, and it's like, you don't, it doesn't have to, the baby doesn't have to take a nap at 4 p.m. The baby can take a nap sometime in the afternoon. And like it while the kids are young and while they're babies, you should just take every opportunity to bring them with you everywhere. Put them in a little papoose on your back and bring them on a scout. Like it's all good. People love that shit. Like being pregnant on set, it like brought the kids together. No one could complain because we were out in the desert and like, when you're 7 months pregnant and you're carrying, a Panavision G2 or something out in the middle of nowhere on a super indie movie, and they're about to give you hot dogs for second meal, which you can't even eat. Like it is what it is. You might cry, but everybody there's so much more love on set too when children are brought into it and motherhood. Everybody can't help but be like less of a jerk and more. Everybody works harder and everybody feels a part of it. The thing is like do that while you can. And then when the kids are a little older, you might have to do what's right for them. And what's right for them, even though my initial instinct would be to be with me all the time, I realized not obviously Hattie has a completely different situation, but at the time my kids were that age, their dad and I were still together. So like they could be with their dad when they weren't with me, or vice versa. So we had to split apart, and it was most hard probably for me. Like it was the worst for me, and I had to deal with that. But then now I can take this time while they're still with me in high school, and later on, more established in my career, and I could take, and also directing. You're not working 24/7 back to back. You're like development and editing, and you can be at home. And I'm just enjoying this time where I can be around them because my oldest one's about to leave, to go to college. And I would say then you get your fill of work, work, work while they're little. And then as they get a little bit older, maybe you're gonna have to pick and choose your projects a little bit more because it's about what's important to you, at that moment in time. And if you can bang out as much work as you can while they're little and you can bring them everywhere with you, do that. They little.
One thing, just another, because sometimes the logistics, like I wanted to bring Cleo I did a commercial right after Cleo was born because I figured it was shooting in LA. The more commercial money I could get meant the longer I could wait before going back to do a long form project. But they were worried about liability. I was like, what is the problem with me bringing like the poo-poo situation, bringing her on set while I pre-lay, while I scout, and it was liability. And I was like, okay, so how about you guys give me a legal whatever that releases you guys of any liability if something happens to my baby on set? And they were like, okay. And that was all they needed, was like me basically saying. And so I think that's like understanding if there is a hang up, what the hang up is. It's usually liability. So offer to sign something that basically says that you won't hold a production liable for what happens to your baby. And like that hopefully will then open the door for them to be able to come with you more.
I have a question because I don't know if I formulated, but it's all this stuff about like, okay, we're confident women saying to production, you don't have to worry, I'm dealing with it, you don't have to respond with whatever. What happens when you are pregnant and you are on set and you're suddenly feeling dizzy or something, not strong enough for a moment to carry the camera? Like already as women, we're pretending that we're like 10 times stronger than we are. I'm like super tiny. Everybody told me all my life, like, how can you do handheld? So here I am, 5 days a week in the gym, holding the camera between takes, which I don't need to, but I'm just like trying to prove 3 times more that I'm strong and that I can do all these jobs that are, that I'm not supposed to be strong enough to do. So what are the stakes when you're pregnant and you have to prove all that? Where is the line, where you have to set boundaries? Like, how did you guys navigate that?
I think you have to you have to listen to your body. That's the other thing that I'm glad you brought that up, because everyone's pregnancy is different. And you might go into a job thinking like, I'm going to work through this job. They're cool. They want me to. But you might start having morning sickness every day. You might start like feeling super ill. Like you don't know. I had relatively, I think, easy pregnancies for myself, but there was times where you have to have a backup plan, or you just have to sort of go in with the team that you're going in, knowing the risks of it. Like we went to shoot this movie in upstate New York in the winter, and I had the nanny. Their dad had to go to LA and GP a show so that we had enough money. And I had both. I had the baby, the kid who was 3 years old, and then I was pregnant with my second kid. And I was on an indie movie where literally it was so indie that I had my G&E crew was like 2 people. And we were shooting 35 in like, Messina, New York, in the winter, dead of winter. And the lead actor, Paul Dano, got like a stomach bug, and then I got it, and I was puking. But I was also, like a few months pregnant, and I had the baby, and like, it sucked. But it was like, I just laid in the van and told everybody what to do. And then when there was something to see, I went in, and I was just literally like, just so sick. The sick where you can't stand up straight, where you're just like hunched over. And I was like, put the camera on my shoulder. Like, we're strong. We're strong people. But there are challenges in pregnancy that I know that I have friends that have experienced that, maybe not necessarily in the industry, but that would maybe have made it really hard for them to get through their pregnancy doing a physical job, the physical and the hours that our job requires. And I think what that comes down to is just having that game plan of like, if you're lucky enough to be in the position of being director of photography, you can have an operator. And even if you love to operate like I do, I never want to give up the camera. Like, you have to have that, you have to, like, for your own self, your own health, have that sort of backup plan. You don't have to prove something. You're already on set pregnant. It's not a game of like proving, can I do this or not? You're there and you're doing it. You just have to do it. And I think part of doing it is being responsible, maybe more responsible than we would be were we not carrying a child. I know I've done some really stupid shit as a DP that is very probably endangered my own safety. Maybe not other people's, but maybe my own. And I don't do that anymore. I don't shoot out of helicopters, for example. Ever since I had kids, it's a standing rule. I don't go in a helicopter anymore. I just don't do it. I went in one once, but it's like you're a mom. You're responsible for another human being. So part of that, I think, is you got to give up some of the things you might want. You have to be ready to give up some of the things you might want to do, just in the name of being responsible to your own body. But that doesn't mean you can't do it, if you start to feel really, I mean, maybe it's a situation like what Polly had, where she had to have an understudy DP, she had to have Amy there. But I was never on a big enough production when I was pregnant to have that. That's why they would take a big risk on me. But I was luckily it worked out. But did I feel good every day? No. And was there air conditioning in any of the sets I was in? Zero. Was I out in the desert in LA in the middle, like at 7 months pregnant? Yes. And it was not comfortable and it didn't feel good. And when I needed to sit down, I sat down. And people got to wait. They're going to have to wait for you.
Yeah.
Let people help you. This is the time. Maybe none of us are used to letting people help us and like we want to do it ourselves. That's the time to let people help you. It's okay.
I think the hardest for me, because I remember being like you were saying on set in the desert pregnant and feeling really nauseous and drinking Gatorade, so I felt okay. Is the breastfeeding, which a couple of people are asking about. I felt that more difficult because, I breastfed until for a year, but I went back to work after 4 months. So I was still breastfeeding and having to, when my baby wasn't there, having to go off set to pump and to express milk. I found that really hard. And I do remember being on set, operating on the camera, and milk just pouring out down my top, and people going, what's going on Andy, and and it hurts, and you have to. That to me was more difficult, and being in the back of a car once when we had to change locations, and I said to the key grip, "You're going to have to drive me to the next location because I can't drive. I've got to express milk," and just saying to him, "Don't look in the rear view mirror." Because I felt like a hand pump, and I was with my boobs out and everything. And, those kind of things are what I found more difficult. I mean, now I laugh about it, but that to me was harder than being pregnant on set, actually.
That was awkward. Yeah, I definitely was in the back of a SUV with a producer and a director in front with my breastfeeding cover and the nipple pumps, and they would just turn up the music. They'd be like, "Oh, Reed's pumping now. All right," and they have like music really loud, and I'd be like, and like that definitely sucked. And I also remember doing like a really long shoot that was like where we were like 11 a.m. till like 4 a.m. I couldn't pump all day. There was no time. It was nonstop, like real, sort of documentary type of thing. And my key grip at like 2 a.m. was like, "Want me to go to Dwayne and Reed and get you?" I didn't have the pump with me. And he was like, they have a hand pump. And my key grip was going to go buy me a hand pump. Like, I mean, people roll with it, but it is awkward. It is not, that part is definitely bad because it gets painful when you're, like, I won't forget that pain, Andy, of like my boobs being rock hard, like pumping for hours.
We have Natalie Kingston here who I think is pumping at the moment and has very, very precise questions about this.
I think the difference actually, since Mandy and Reed, since you had babies, is they do make a silent pump now. I wouldn't call it entirely silent, but it's silent enough. So I decided at some point, fuck it. Like I can't leave set for 20 minutes every 3 hours. I'm gonna like say fuck the taboo, and I would just pull my shirt out, put the things under my dolly. My grips would make me a little like pump stand on the dolly, and I would just pump while I was shooting. I'm like pumping on the dolly. I'm pumping in picture car in pursuit vehicles, and just kind of like whether or not other people find it, I don't know, obtrusive or awkward or whatever. I was just like, I can't. I mean, I decided to kind of blow the taboo apart, I guess.
Does he sell this dolly pumping machine? There's a business there. There's 1,000 people on this call, so
Yeah, right.
I'm not, this is not an endorsement, but this is what I have. Kind of going to Rachel's point and just like how this is like self-contained, and this is what I'm like already ready to wear for when I'm back on set. But yeah, it's I feel like I've spoken to some also DP mamas that had recommended it, and they were like, it's gone a long way, the pump industry, and it's super discreet. So
What is it called?
That's true, since I had
LVs.
Yes.
LV?
Yeah.
I'm deep in the breastfeeding shooting phase, and I have also just said screw the taboo. I've just been breastfeeding on set, like at every opportunity. This baby, loves the boob and will not take a bottle. So I just put her in the front carrier thing in the front, and I haven't asked anyone what their opinion is. I've just done it because she's hungry and everyone else is allowed to eat, and that's what she eats. So, I mean, I just accepted that everyone's going to see my boobs, but that it's kind of, it's weird that side of it also, for me anyway, totally changes once you've had a baby that needs to feed. Your kind of chest just takes on a different meaning, and it doesn't faze me anyway to kind of feed her out in the world. But that's just how we've been doing it. And I don't know, everyone's been super supportive. Sometimes I sit down and do it at the monitor, or sometimes I'll up walking around, lining up a shot, or walking from location to location. So Yeah, of course. You kind of just do what you have to do in a way. And there's definitely times where it's not convenient. Like, you know, she's hungry and she wants to feed, but she's also being noisy and we're about to go for a take and it's super emotional. And you're like, also a delicate lighting situation where you need to be, you know, making tweaks between take one and take two. And like, I don't know, sometimes this is really bad timing, but you kind of somehow figure it out. And going back to that thing about kind of proving yourself physically, yeah, I totally agree with what Reed was saying. Like you're already, if you're on pregnant and you're a female DP and you're pregnant and you're employed and you're on set and you're doing it, you don't need to prove to anyone that you're like, you know, got anything to prove. So I think having a operator has been a game changer for me. It just means, you know, I love operating, and I operated when I was pregnant, but it's just not possible to operate and breastfeed. Might be probably, it sounds like it's not possible to operate and pump, but you know, I can sit at the monitor and be on the headset with everyone that needs to chat and take care of her at the same time. And then she'll fall asleep. So then I'm carrying her around to sleep for a few hours. And on we go until she wakes up, and then I can pass her to someone, either my partner or a babysitter type person. And then that's how we get through a 16-hour day until she eventually passes out at night. And then yeah, then she'll like sleep.
Where are you shooting, Ari?
We're in Winnipeg, actually, but luckily it's summer, not winter. Yeah, we're in Canada. It's been great. I mean, I would say it's been really interesting learning kind of actually like about just what kind of crazy expectations there are for the amount of hours of work that people do in this role and in the film industry in general. Like, it never really occurred to me how much work I did outside of normal business hours, whether it's like working or kind of grinding all weekend to do your own creative work so you're prepared for the week ahead, or sometimes it can be, I find it hard to do creative work during prep in the office because there's so much logistical stuff going on, or at the end of the day, or lunch meetings and that kind of thing. So that's one thing I've found hard to juggle, actually, because that's how I do my own. That's, I realized, it didn't even really occur to me, but I realized that's where I've done my own creative work, not in the office, but a lot of my creative work's done before I'm on set and outside of the normal hours that I'm employed. But it's been really super challenging because that's when you don't have the extra support and everyone else is still grinding all weekend. So you can come into the Monday morning feeling like I'm feeling a little underprepared because I didn't do a whole weekend of work. On the other hand, you're like, well, I shouldn't have to do a whole weekend of work and work every single night just to do the bare minimum to like be able to do my role. But that kind of is the reality that most other heads of department are doing a lot of their own work on the weekends, or so that's been challenging, actually, probably more like logistically and emotionally, kind of starting the week feeling like, fuck, I'm not as prepared as I had been on other jobs. But I think also it is like a particular time, like young toddlerhood, where you can't, I don't know, it's just like there's a biological need for them to need you, and you do want to like put lots of energy into the relationship on the weekends because you've kind of palmed them off all week to other people and you want to like kind of spend time together. So that's been something I hadn't expected going back to work, to realize how much work outside of normal hours you do and how difficult that is when you, I mean, it's almost impossible to like have creative thoughts and care for a baby, I found, in this stage anyway. Maybe like technical and logistical things I find I can just like do them multitask, but the creative stuff where you need to like really sink into something for a few hours and like deeply go through some, you know, on an internal thought process, that's been actually more of the challenge. And I'm hoping either I get better at the juggle, or as she gets older, she can spend more time away from me, and I can get back into that.
I do find a few people ask about this too, is sleep deprivation, because you are really tired all the time and
Yeah.
kind of like doing two jobs. It's like being jet lagged all the time because you get woken up in the middle of the night and you spend a lot of time on the weekends not resting. And that is really difficult, trying to manage that. It does, you know, a younger baby obviously is more, it's harder because they wake up more and they need more of your attention and the breastfeeding and everything. But yes, you are tired a lot. And breastfeeding is tiring, isn't it? It's like you're giving blood or something, you know, it does take a lot out of your body. So you just have to be, as we all know, you just have to be prepared to be tired, you know, and to be able to function, which we all do sometimes on jobs when we are doing 16-hour days and 7 days a week, which has happened and does happen. But mentally, that's where it's a mental juggle where you just know I'm going to be tired. I still have to function. And like we're all saying, we are badass women and you know, we're in the job that we are because we're tough and leaders. And it is another challenge that you have to take on.
Yeah, and I'll also just say is that when your little girl comes out of the crib, and she's sleeping in her own bed, like what I found was, because I wasn't around in the day, that my daughter would like come into my bed all night because she knew that at nighttime she would get to see me and be with me. And like sometimes I would just get like no sleep at all, even when she was like 3, because I would have her in my bed and I would take her back to her bed and then I would go back into my bed and I wouldn't even know whose bed I was in half the time. I was so delirious. But I guess you just get used to it, you know, and even before we have kids, we're used to working with very little sleep. Thank God we're like trained somehow. So yeah, it's like I always feel like I'm guilty because I mean, I know I shouldn't feel guilty, Mandy, but like I do, like I feel guilty when I'm at work of not being with my kids, and then I'm with my kids, I'm getting all these emails and stuff, and I'm guilty that I'm not able to focus on them, but I want to focus on my kids. And then I was just on a movie where the director wanted to meet on a Sunday, and like I didn't want to not be with my kids, so I was with her on Sunday evening. And yeah, it's just, you know, and then I'm trying to be a good partner as well to my husband, and I can't be a good partner because most of the time I'm thinking about work or I'm thinking about my kids, and I'm also trying to like leave space for that part of my life too. So, you know, it's just a juggle. I think it's yeah, but it's worth it. It's just hard.
And it does get easier as they get older. And you know, the other thing is that we have time off in between our projects.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
more than a lot of people in other industries do. So I think that having a vacation, taking them away and spending like 100% of your time with them kind of helps at the end, and knowing that that, you know, you can look forward to that as well, and that you're going to be busy for this time and then you're going to have break. You know, I think that was
Yeah.
an important thing, I think.
Yeah. And I'm doing that right now because I just finished a job and it's amazing. You know, you're right. Like my sister works for the National Health in England, and she's never at home. She works all the time. And so it is amazing. We can go to work and then we can spend like the really good quality time with them, which is, you know, the best.
Yeah. I've been a co-sleeper. I did a co-sleeper when my kids were little, which translates, you think you're getting more sleep because the baby is next to the bed and you don't have to get up out of bed to get the baby out of the crib to breastfeed. But in reality, I realized later that we probably got less sleep because you don't sleep at all, because the co-sleeper's right there. I would bring the baby to bed and just plop him onto me to breastfeed and then never really put him back. So they always kind of slept in the bed with us, which I won't say I'm recommending for relationships, but I thought at the time I was getting that much more sleep because we were both working on set at the time, you know, and we needed every minute of sleep we could get. So just even having to get up, not having to get up out of bed, the co-sleeper was great because I would just roll the baby onto me and then that. And also, to be fair, people are worried, oh, I'm going to crush the baby in bed if I fall asleep. And it's like, a wonderful thing happens when you become a mom. And that thing is just, you just have this innate, you are on alert pretty much for the rest of your life as long as that child exists, where you would never, that would never happen. So just prepare, like, yeah, when you become a mom, you're not gonna really stay as you used to until they become teenagers and have no interest in you. And then at that point, you're gonna really wish that they were needing you at every moment in time, like they need you right now. So it's more about you trying to fit into their schedule, and that's a whole other discussion for the latter years of that. Forget, don't be afraid to take time off, like what Polly was saying, because you only get that time once and it goes so fast. I mean, like, I can't even believe it that my kids we're looking at colleges and I only have 1 year left with my oldest kid. So I'm going to be home as much as I can.
I just wanted to add, I think like the beauty of all of this and motherhood, like as everyone's listening, everyone has a different way that they raise their baby, like absolutely all different ways. And I think that kind of I've always thought that kind of took the load off, that there is no instruction manual. You just kind of do what works for you. You follow your instincts. And because there isn't like a set way of doing things, like you just kind of make it work. And just kind of speaking to the sleep deprivation and schedule, like we're going through the thick of it right now, but like everybody has a different way of doing that. But like what my husband and I found that works for us is like he takes our baby exclusively from like 8, 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., which allows me to sleep during that time, or I'll prep the nursery for the next day or put laundry away. So I use that time mostly to sleep. So I get a good like 4, sometimes 5, 6 hours in that chunk. And then I take her from like 2 to 7 a.m. And then he sleeps during that time. And then we share duties from like 7 a.m. until the rest of the day. So that kind of like taking the baby exclusively for that time allows our partner to sleep. So that's kind of like what we did that works for us. And so I just wanted to kind of share that's another way to do it if like you want to get sleep. Or like my husband, who's also a cinematographer, had a couple days on set, like right when our baby was like 4 or 5 days old or something like that. And what we did so that it ensured he got sleep is like I just took her the whole night, and that's kind of like what we did for those occasions. But I think kind of taking shifts, as we call it, has definitely kind of helped give us a little bit more sleep.
How do you deal with that, Hattie, being a single mum?
Well, I just rode the wave. I've literally, I found myself in a situation not of my choosing, with a passion for my work. And you just put, I don't know, it's been a trial by fire. I've just become stronger. You're stronger and stronger because of what life throws at you. So, I've been very tired. But I like physical fitness, getting a run in, all the like feeding your body, nourishing yourself, all the ways that you help yourself remain strong and in every way. They just become really really healthy habits if you can form healthy habits. I've relied on those a lot, and really good friendships.
That's a very good advice. Does anyone have like a hack that you want to share, or something that is like, if somebody would ask me, you know, that they want to have a kid and be a cinematographer, like what's the one thing that you would tell them, or the one thing that you wish somebody told you before you did it, you know, the one thing that is like the advice or the help, or like, don't do that, or I don't know.
I think we'd all say go for it. Like, but you know, and that it won't be easy, but it will be rewarding times a million. At least, I mean, that's certainly how I feel is if it's something that you want to like have a career and have a child, like that it's not impossible and that it's not easy, but it's not impossible and that it's worth it.
Yeah. Do it if you found the way that you want to do it, it's the right time. Like if work was not a factor, everything else feels right for your body and your health and all that. And your situation, you know, just for a second, put the work aside and just think, is it right for me in all the other ways? And if it is, I wouldn't let the work stop you, because work ebbs and flows. And like we said, it's always gonna, I don't even remember now the movies, the things the jobs that I lost. I mean, I vaguely remember them, but they never did anything anyway. They weren't, I mean, you know, it's not that important. And I've lost jobs for and I lost jobs for other reasons, you know, like sick for a period of time. Sometimes your body needs something else, and you're getting if you're having that biological need to have a child, and it seems like everything else about it seems right. The financial part's never going to seem right, but like we had nothing and we made it work somehow. You know, we moved from like the Midtown Upper East Side or whatever to Bed-Stuy to afford a 3-bedroom apartment, so that if we ever needed a nanny or my sister or somebody to come and live with us, had an extra room, you know, and it wasn't a great neighborhood at that time, and we just did it. So sometimes you just gotta. Not all the things are gonna feel ideal, but just I think Rachel's right. It's like just go for it.
A lot of people, including me, because I bought a farm, want to hear about Allison. How do you do it with 1,000 bees and the goats and the sheep, plus the kid, the dog, and the cats?
Oh man, honestly, the sheep are the easiest part of it all. I mean, unless there's like an issue, or you know, they break the fence and they're on the road, then that happens once in a while. It's fine, you figure it out. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's definitely a lot. Again, it's kind of the same thing where this is just kind of a lifestyle we wanted, and we were kind of willing to make certain sacrifices for it and to do it. And, you know, is that to say we'll have this forever, or is it something that eventually, you know, if things don't work at some point, we can pare down. But somehow there is time for it and you find it. And when you don't have the time, there's like certain things that can be delegated to other people. Like, oh, we don't have time to mow this week or whatever. We can hire somebody if we're both working. We've just been, the baby definitely shook a lot of stuff up for us. Just as far as we didn't really have any help. We don't have family where we live. And we don't really have we didn't have help until more recently. And she's like almost a year and a half now. So my parents or my mom was just flying. If I had a job and had to bring the baby in, let's say Logan couldn't come, she would just be there and watch her. And so, yeah, it's like, again, that thing with production where we're like, oh, can we just like fly all in main cabin, and then we could buy her ticket, and then maybe we could get in on the group rate for the job or whatever. But yeah, it's hard and it's expensive, and but it worked, but it somehow worked fine, and it, I definitely ended up taking a little bit more time off in the beginning than I thought I was going to. I did do one commercial like at 6 weeks postpartum, and I was like not ready. So I waited until closer to like 6 months after that. And I just got to spend so much time here, and I just really found like a groove here. And I feel like for now, I'm just kind of sticking with the short form stuff just while she's this little, because I don't know, for us, I just don't think there's a way that we could both or even one of us like do a long form thing, maybe now, but right away, I don't think there was. But yeah, we definitely have some help when we need it. Especially like when if we're both gone, which happens sometimes, we have people stay here to take care of stuff. So
how do you weigh like who should take a job or
yeah,
conversation? Yeah.
That's a really good question. It's definitely an ongoing conversation because it's really helpful. We have the same agent. So it's like really nice to be able to kind of like have her as part of, and, she really understands our like family farm dynamic. And so it's helpful when jobs do come up, how we can sort of assess, because as we all know, it's not only financial. Sometimes it's like there's different creatives and different opportunities that can be super beneficial for one or the other. And yeah, it's definitely, for a while, it was just Logan taking jobs because I was like, I just need to stay here and this is what I feel like I need to do. And it makes the most sense. But now that we're both back pretty regularly, it's like, definitely we're traveling a lot more with the baby because we haven't really like left her alone ever. So she's always usually with me. But yeah, we're still sorting that out. But yeah, it's like the weight of which things matter. But it's like I really wanted to do this like short form project last month, and it was a short film. And obviously there's like no money, but it was a really important project to me. And Logan was already on a commercial, and so we just made it work. My parents came out and watched her while and we're on these short projects. They're so long and the hours are weird, and that was just something we had to sort of invest in for the opportunity, or for the creative pursuit, I guess. Yeah, but I don't know, I feel like I haven't totally figured it out yet, so maybe it's an ongoing thing.
I have a question. When you're pregnant and you can't drink caffeine, how the fuck do you stay awake on set?
That's so funny because you get used to not having caffeine, I think, and you just survive you just get your energy in a different way. Yeah, I didn't really miss it when I stopped. I mean, I'm back drinking coffee again now, but after a couple of months, I didn't miss it.
I had caffeine. I had one coffee a day. I think you can actually have a bit of caffeine, but
yeah.
I mean, I would find also, like, obviously, I mean, I stopped drinking when we started to try and conceive, so I really haven't. I think that was kind of a big part of like the social life of being in the film industry, and I haven't missed that whatsoever. Again, it's kind of, I think there's like a, not weird, actually, probably completely natural, like biological thing that happens where just your like interest kind of shifts. And right now, like the idea of like standing around in like a bar with a bunch of people talking and drinking, which would have been like a lot of the weekend atmosphere of a lot of jobs, is like the last, just have like no appetite for it. And I don't like feel deprived. It's more just like something in your brain just like shifts. But I don't know, also I had like my pregnancy was like pretty straightforward, and I felt like so full of energy. There's like you have like this life inside you that's growing, and it's like you can feel it like moving around. And there was definitely days where I was like exhausted, but I also like got this weird, like I felt like superhuman, actually, kind of like extra strong. Yeah, it's again like you've no idea I've done like so much pregnancy and birth research, and I know like all the different kinds of pregnancies and all the different kind of births you can have, and I'm going to have one of those, and it's like, no, it's like always different no matter what, how much you think you can expect it, which is so cool as well. It's like just your body that you have reacting with this other person that's literally like inside you, and it's so, I don't know, I found the whole thing really like life affirming, and it's like I feel kind of like in awe of the world that you go through such a strange, I don't know, I did anyway. I feel like you're like, after the first day that you have this baby, and you're just like, I don't know, everything seems like so magic, and you actually, I felt like full of possibility more than like, oh fuck, I've ruined my career and my life. It was actually like anything's possible, and you've just done the most insanely like physical feat that you feel like unstoppable in a way. Yeah, it's been, I don't know, I've had a really fun, super fun time, and you can't, I don't think I was prepared for like how much fun you have with a baby. Like it's just like I've never laughed so much. Like it's so ridiculous. Kind of things that you end up doing, or that you and then also you like the conversations you have with your partner about like you have like a whole language around poo, and that's like a thing. And but you also just, I don't know, it's been so fun on set as well. Like I was super nervous that I would have to be really discreet with her and like not cause any interruptions, but people have been so supportive and so excited. And like we arrive on set in the morning, she's like waving at everyone, and everyone's like gets so much out of her. And right now I'm just doing a pilot of a TV show, and it's coming to an end, and everyone's like, what are we going to do without Alma? You know, it's like, it brings like such a fun energy on set. Kind of like I don't know, it's like having like a therapy animal. Everyone gets their turn, like pass her around, and she's got her like buddies, and I don't know, it's really special. I wish you could like remember it, because you can see how much like she gets out of it and people get out of it. And I don't know, maybe it's just this particular job, but it's been really fun, and I don't know, like affirming that it's kind of doable. Yeah, I don't know if this is a one-off or this is the vibe that it's going to be, but I don't know. I can say it's been super positive from a kind of experience point of view so far.
Chiming in real quick just about the caffeine, but I mean, technically you can't have a cup of coffee. I tried to stay away, but when I did it, I had it. And just a quick mention, but last night over family dinner, actually, because I'm breastfeeding currently, and I was trying to stay away from, or I haven't had a caffeine, chocolate, dairy, all these things that like some pediatricians advise not to, or alcohol. And I was talking to a family doctor, and he asked me, he goes, well, all those things, like I totally understand, but like how's mom's mental health? Like if it's gonna make you like have a better day on set and you need it to have energy, like a cup of coffee isn't gonna do anything bad over your pregnancy. And it really resonated when he was like, if you want to have that piece of bagel with cream cheese and it's dairy and it's gonna make you feel better, have it. And so I think it's also really important just to like our mental health also translates to our baby, whether you're breastfeeding or they're in your belly. So I think that kind of took the stress away of like just do what's like also a little bit right for you.
Yeah. I would drink a Coke with my second kid. I had like a craving. I only wanted sweet things. And I would eat Captain Crunch, and I drank Coke slushies on set, like at least one a day. That was the mistake. And I can just say he is now 15, and he's almost over 6 feet tall and super smart, and but it didn't do anything wrong to him. So just like Fiorella was saying, everything in moderation, and give yourself, maybe don't do what I did, because I gained 60 pounds with each pregnancy, but you don't have to follow all the rules. They change all the time, I'm sure. So.
I remember somebody had told me, and I don't know where it came from, that Irish mums had Guinness stout when they were breastfeeding, and so I would have a little Guinness with my because of the vitamins in it or something. But it made me feel good, and yeah, and it obviously Ruby's fine, so.
Look how great Ruby turned out. Yeah, I mean, my mom smoked and drank when she was pregnant with me, and I mean, I definitely had some issues, but for the most part, I'm all right.
anyone have any hacks for babies on planes? That's my main concern.
Ooh, yeah.
I just find they get used to it. The more they fly, the more they get used to it, and they know this is the drill. It becomes a normal part of life. I sit down, I draw, I watch something on the iPad, I do whatever. The more you take them on planes, the better it is that they do get used to it.
You also get like a warm up, like at first. I did a grade. We went to from Australia to the US when she was maybe like 3 months old, and that was super easy. You just sleep for like 16 hours, no problem. And then slowly, as they like come to life, you know, you do a flight where they're like, you're not going to get dropped on with like a 3-year-old. That's, you know, I think the thing I've learned about parenting is you get these like baby steps up where you kind of like challenged along the way, but just within your ability to handle. And I think, yeah, we've had the easy start of flying, and I can sense it'll get harder, but it won't be like a sudden surprise shock that you're going to get. And I think that's kind of the same with all the parenting. You start off with this little like kind of animal type thing, and then slowly like a person starts to come out of it and has opinions and kind of preferences, but it's like it's not overnight. It's like a very slow volume turning up of like intensity and responsibility. Well, sounds like the recording will stop in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
according to the.
I think we'll have to ask you permission to keep recording.
Okay.
Figuring it out. And the taking care of yourself, the self-care is actually a key part of it, but it's also like that's another thing that you have to find time for. Do you have any hacks about that, like things that you do real quick but that you try to do them, like not miss them, to make sure that you can keep yourself also strong, to be strong for others?
I just put her in, again, my only parenting hack is like put the baby in the baby carrier and do what you were going to do anyway. So I just go for a walk. I try and walk every morning, even if it's super early before set, but I just either put her in the stroller or put her in the carrier thing and just walk. And that, I don't know, that's always been, before pregnancy, I was more of a like running type person. But if she won't go in the stroller, which sometimes she doesn't want to do, and I put her in the front and just go for a walk. But I don't know, I think I would really struggle without that kind of 1 hour a day of just like hour and time together in the quiet, walking around. That's like definitely a not negotiable for me.
I think it's
sorry.
I was going to say, like, I think it's so valuable, you know, pregnancy and babies aside, like carving out time for self-care and sort of recognizing what that is. And sometimes, I mean, it feels like with babies, the solution is sometimes you just have to throw money at the problem. So if it's getting a sitter so that you can have an hour or two to yourself, like for me, you know, I tend to like to surf or soccer and things that I can't take a baby with me on. So it's sometimes you pay for somebody to come watch the baby so you can, you know, take a little time for yourself. Or if you're lucky enough to have a partner, you sort of trade, you know, a couple hours of your self-care for a couple hours of theirs, and you navigate it that way. But it's really, I think if you're gonna take on career plus mom, it's almost like essential that you make some space for yourself too.
That's the one thing I would do differently. Yeah. We were so poor at that point when we had kids. We didn't really have the opportunity to do any of that kind of stuff. I never exercised until, you know, within the past 10 years after. Like basically, I think that the fact that you do that, Ari, and like, you know, Rachel, you've always been like super athletic, and I would say strength training. If you could take time to do some strength training, that's good for you as you age and get older. And carrying around a baby all day and breastfeeding, like Mandy said, that's exercise. That is a ton of exercise. It does take a lot out of you. It burns calories. don't be too hard on yourself, but like definitely like take the opportunity. If someone wants to watch the baby for you, I was always like, because I was working, I always felt like I didn't want to give my baby up to someone else because I felt I wanted that time, you know. But it's okay when they're little, when they're that young, they don't really know. They're not, and my kids don't. They don't remember a lot of the time where I know I was away a lot, and so you know, even if you've worked all week and you need to have a babysitter, you know, for a few hours on Saturday, so you can like go do whatever it is you want to do, yoga or see a movie or anything. I mean, you should just do it, because if someone's gonna do that for you, you should take the opportunity, basically. I didn't have any family around when you know, family didn't live near us either. So we didn't really have anyone who could help us. So we were pretty much both at it all the time. But yeah, you know, eventually you can make that up when they're, like I said, once they hit like 6th, 7th, 8th grade, particularly if they're boys, they're gonna like suddenly you'll never know if they're in the house. We'll be like begging out with you. So you can do it then, but it's probably more healthy if you balance it out and do it when they're little, so they get used to, you know, that's how you should take care of yourself as a parent and set an example.
Yeah, that's amazing, and that's so important, because obviously sometimes women were not so good at taking care of ourselves, and we're taking care of everyone else, right? So
yeah,
that's key. There's a lot of questions from a lot of people still, but I know that some of the mamas and not mamas have to go after 2 hours. So maybe I'll just ask one last question, but I want to tell you also that we're keeping this open. So we have the Discord channel that we created inside Deep Light, which is called CAMERAMAMAS. And the conversation can continue here, and everyone can open a thread, and we can open a thread about, you know, pumping on set, and we can open another thread about, you know, hacks for whatever. You know, I'll just be delighted that the conversation continues and that everyone can get all their answers from all the questions, which don't have to come only from the panelists, but like from people talking to each other and sharing each other. There's like 1,000 people here. So I think it's going to be a lot of hacks that can be shared, and ideas and support. We didn't get to talk about health, which is like a big one, and you know, depression and how you cope with guilt. We talked a little bit, but being far away and all these things. So that we could definitely keep talking for hours and hours and hours, but I want to be respectful of half of our panelists that have to. But one last question that it would be nice to maybe have is, which people have been asking, is how do we as heads of department can support below the line crew, to keep on our crew and stuff, because obviously for them it's even harder, right, keeping moms. So. I don't know if anyone have any experience with, I haven't had any crew yet.
I've been very vocal with our union. I'm not getting anywhere, and if anything, we actually, the last vote set us pretty far back, but that the 10-hour like French hour day is just so much more civil for families. And I think maybe more people need to be vocal about that, because the union, at least this is all US based, but IATSE went the other direction, which is, I think, pressure from maybe Teamsters and GRIPS and people, or perceived. I mean, the irony is I don't think they actually talked to their constituents. I think it was remnants from when, you know, people wanted sort of pre-COVID days where it was like all about overtime. But I mean, I think the most proactive thing we can do is really try to push for 10-hour straights, because yeah, okay, you don't get to eat lunch sitting down, but if it means you get to tuck your baby in at night, like it's most people would say it's all the difference. I think encouraging people to, you know, things like the waiver of liability, like I think, you know, making that maybe more commonplace, that like bring your baby to set, just make sure that, you know, or just if you need to get get producers to sign off on it and do it like by releasing liability. But like I've always, you know, I think I've always been like family first with my crew and my department heads. And you know, if anybody ever needs to go to a doctor or replace themselves, you know, or you know, baby's sick, like bring in a sub for a day. Like you know, and I think that's the small sort of steps we can take. But curious what other people have found.
Yeah, I mean, I did attend the past like 8 years or so. I was like overseas doing the French hours, and the crews are so much happier because I think because they have a life. And, you know, and by the way, we get everything done. And I don't, you know, nobody, it's like sometimes it's really nice to sit down and have lunch, but everyone, I think actually for them, everybody seems to make it work over there, and everyone's in a better mood because they know they could go out to dinner when they go home or go to dinner make dinner with their families. And it does make a huge difference. I think that, Rachel, it's a shame that we can't, that's like an impossibility here, you know? But maybe it won't be forever. Maybe we really need to, like, it's great that you've been working on that because I forget, like I'm back in, you know, the US doing a shoot, which, you know, it was too late to change it anyway, but it's definitely, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, we have to take an hour for lunch. I forgot about that, you know, like that would help majorly, I think.
I totally agree. But I've done it on many films in the UK, in Australia, and New Zealand, and everybody's so much happier. As long as production are really aware about how they feed people and that you have good food and that you get like maybe sometimes 10 or 15 minutes just to stop and eat is my experience. But most of the time, 100% of everybody is so much happier to get home earlier. And I also think sometimes breaking for an hour is non-productive because people go and have a nap or they just slow down and you know you just break the momentum of working. So I totally agree with everybody. I think it's a much better way of working.
Yeah,
And I think
totally agree.
sorry.
Sorry, you go.
I was gonna say, I think the only other thing I can think of is like really encouraging, you know, ourselves and the people working, you know, below the line to try to normalize things like pumping, like bringing babies. Like, let's not make it, you know, such a abnormal, or like, let's increase the visibility, and encourage our department heads to increase the visibility, so that it does become sort of generally less sort of taboo and I don't know. Sorry, Ari, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, no, so often, like nobody actually wants an hour for lunch. It's kind of like there's at least like half an hour there. Everyone's kind of like wandering around, wondering when we're back on, and let's get back to it. But yeah, I was going to say all I do is for both like men and women that I work with is kind of just talk to people about their families. Like, it's such a great way to connect with people. And I don't know, on this job, I found, I don't know if it's a Winnipeg thing, but almost everyone has a photo of their kids on their cart, like laminated, and it's like the sweetest thing. It almost like makes me want to cry. It's so sweet that people like, I don't know, it's, that feels really new to me. Like, I don't think that would have been a thing 15 years ago. It was almost like, I don't know, when I was an AC, you would definitely not talk about your home life. That kind of like had to somehow like magically not exist. But now I feel like the conversation is a little more open, and once you get to know like what people's family situation is, and sometimes you find out like people do have like a really tricky family situation, but they're turning up at work every Monday, like kind of, you know, turning up at work like a normal person, and if you can understand the context of what they might have been through, or, you know, I like talking to people about their kids because you can kind of, you know, occasionally there'll be, I don't know, we're shooting a day exterior and, you know, the best boy's got like 3 little kids at home, and you can, you know, as a head of department say like, you don't need to be standing around waiting to put up a light that I'm not going to use. Like, do you want to head home? It's Friday. It's like, you're definitely not going to get used. Like, I'm not going to need you. Like, or creating the environment where people can be honest and say, like, I've got my kids' dance thing, it's, 7, do you think we'll be done by then? Like, rather than silently kind of hoping that it's going to happen. And like, I don't know, I think being aware of what people's home life is, it's a really lovely way to connect. And sometimes I think it's really special to people when they can go and do something that they might not otherwise get to do with their kids. It's like, it's a small thing for you, but for them it's like really, really important.
I think just echoing what you just said, and I think like the word that keeps coming in my mind is like compassion. And it's just understanding like your crew is like your family. Like there's been plenty of times where we're shooting commercials and I'm like looking at the monitor, I'm like, that went soft a little bit, and I'll look off and my AC is dozing off by the monitor, and it's like, yeah, on like one side it's tricky because like there's high stakes and everyone's watching the monitor, but at the same time I'm like, this is a father that just had a newborn and this is what he needs to do to pay for his family. And so like those things always, like what you were saying about the key grip, like that's been plenty of times where my crews come up to me like on a pre-light day or like the second AC's like, my kid has this thing, like, is it cool if I can, obviously if they let you know ahead of time, if it's like sprung and you need them, it gets a little tricky. But I think it's like the idea of, especially once you've gone through it, that you definitely understand more like where they're coming from. But I think it's just like having a little bit more of that other side of like, even though you're at work and it's really important, like having that compassion to help, create create like a community where like it's okay to have kids or family or newborn, because you're in it together. But I think welcoming that or hiring new mothers, like all of those things kind of play into allowing motherhood, or fatherhood for that matter, to take place on set.
I agree that I think it's changed a lot. When I first started in the film industry, nobody would talk about those things, and we all just would be at work, and it was all about work. And more, you understand people's personal lives, and it's more of a community thing. And like Ari was saying, I always make a point of telling my crew that it's important to me as well that they tell me these things, or if they need something, they mention it, and that if we can deal with it, we will.
Absolutely. Okay. I just wanted to ask you something. I don't know if we're prepared for this, but everyone talks so much about seeing the images sometimes of some of you on set with the babies and how that showed them that it was possible and inspire them. And I wonder, some of you had some kind of photos handy, because we thought we were maybe going to do that. If you just bring them, to the camera like this and show them, and maybe we can do like a little teaser afterwards. I don't know if anyone has the photos, or you could, maybe you have it on your phone, or you can just do like this so that we can see your face and then we can see your photos. That would be great. And for the people that are listening, we can send you a link later. And if you want to record yourself also doing the same thing, it could maybe be beautiful to do a mosaic of all the hundreds of women out there that are doing all of these jobs at the same time. So if you happen to have a handy photo, I invite you to just bring it to the lens, and if not, it's okay. Wow, it's so beautiful. It's so cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being that mirror for so many of us and showing that it's possible, and all these different ways in which it's possible. I think this is just the beginning of the conversation. We're going to post the link in Discord again, because now people keep talking. So so it can be visible, but we'll send you an email after so that everyone also can have it and how to rush if you close the Zoom or whatever. I'd like to invite you to continue the conversation, to support each other. And yeah, I'm just super, super, super grateful that this miracle happened, that we got all these women in front of the camera. We will be doing more events like this on Deep Light. The whole idea what I created this platform is to be able to have these conversations that seem so obvious and so needed, but actually we are not really having them so much. So we'll keep you informed of whatever is the next deep talk that we'll have. But please feel free to use the Discord as a resource and talk to each other and support each other and share hacks, successes, failures, tears, celebrations, and everything. It's really moving to me to know that this is a community that we all have each other, and even just listen to the stories, you know, like how Polly had called, you know, Rachel and Reed and Mandy, and like, this is amazing. This is what women do for each other, what we've been doing for centuries. And now that we have internet and the possibility of creating these communities, is amazing that we can actually support each other in something that is, you know, still quite challenging and quite new. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I admire you all. And yeah, we'll continue it in the Discord.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
You're all
guys.
amazing.